Hello, in this video we're going to look at making paragraph styles. So we're going to learn how to create them and then we're going to learn how to use them as well. Now eventually you'll come to realise that paragraph styles are one of the most useful features of Adobe InDesign. Okay, they will allow you to format text quickly and keep the appearance of your document consistent throughout. And the main advantage is that if you need to make a change, you only need to make that change once. If you edit the style, every paragraph using that style will update automatically. This is especially useful if you are creating longer documents such as reports, magazines, books and portfolios. Paragraph styles can be used to store settings such as your font size, the actual font itself, leading, i.e. line spacing, alignment, indents, space before and after paragraphs, hyphenation information, and even the colour of the text. Okay. Now, the other benefit of using paragraph and indeed character styles, which we will talk about in a later video, is that they can be added to Creative Cloud libraries. Now this makes it much easier for you to use the same styles in other documents, and you can even share them with people. So if you are working on a group project, then you can pop your paragraph styles in your Creative Cloud libraries, share the library with your teammates, and they can use exactly the same same paragraph styles. Okay, so now I've already created my document here, as you can see, and I am using this particular workspace. It's called Advanced. So for you to be able to see things exactly as I'm displaying them here, I suggest you go to Window, go to Workspace and choose Advanced. Okay. So once you've done that, we're going to go to the File menu and we're going to import some text. Now I've already pre-made a little text file, which I'm just going to bring in. Now what I've done with this is I've just saved it as a plain text document. Can you see this? Now you can do this straight out of Word, or if you use Pages on a Mac perhaps, you just save it as a plain text document. Now that ensures that it comes in without any tags on it. So it'll be absolutely plain and it makes formatting really simple. So I'm just going to draw out a frame here, like so, and I'm going to drop my text in. Now this little box here, this little square with a plus in it, tells me that I've got some overset text. In other words, there's more text than will fit in this frame. And down here, you'll see it says one error. So that is the error. It's called overset text, and we're not going to worry about it because we'll get to it in due course. Now, as you can see, the text has come in this basic paragraph style. We have no other styles going on just at the moment. This first line where it says fashion buying from trend to customer is going to be our main title. So I'm going to leave that alone for a minute. And I'm going to style up this paragraph here. This is going to be our intro paragraph. So it's going to be in a typeface that's nice and easy to read, and maybe a little bit larger than our body copy. Now this is kind of fashion leaning, this article that I'm doing, so I need to pick typefaces and things that will evoke that. I'm not going to go and pick anything that's a little bit silly or a little bit sci-fi, because that doesn't really fit with this piece of text that I'm dealing with. All right. Now, if you look at magazines like Harper's Bazaar or Vogue, for example, the typefaces that they use are called Didoni, okay, which is a mashup of two words, Bodoni and Dido, and they are very fashion orientated. You see them all over the place. The front cover of Vogue and Harper's uses those kind of Didoni typefaces, and there's a few of these, and they're you can spot them because they've kind of got very thick strokes and very, very thin strokes in them, so you'll be able to recognize those quite easily. Now I'm going to start off by styling this up. I want to make it's currently 12 point in Minion Pro, which is the default, and I'm just going to find something. There we are, there's a Bodoni there, so I could start with this, or I could go with Bodoni Pro. We've got Bodoni URW, okay, so I could start with this. I quite liked it italicized, so I'm going to go with a regular oblique, okay. I might want it a bit lighter than that, maybe light oblique, and maybe 13 point, just a little bit bigger. Okay, so I'll leave that as it stands. I'm not sure I'm done with it, but it doesn't matter. This is how our paragraph styles are really going to help us. Now I've done this, and you can see all it's done is it's changed the basic paragraph. My basic paragraph is still highlighted, and it now has this little plus next to it, which is called an override. We'll talk about overrides again shortly, but I don't want this to stay like this. I want a brand new style. Now, because I've got this highlighted here, if I just click here, it will make me a brand new style. This one's called Paragraph Style 1, and that is now applied because I've selected it. And I'm going to double click on it to edit it. So I'm going to change its name. Now I mentioned before that this was my my intro paragraph, so I'm going to call it just that, intro para. Okay, so there's its new name, and if I go to basic character formats, you can see there's the typeface that I chose. Okay, and you can see its style, it's light oblique, and its size. And you can also see something here called leading, okay? If you're familiar with things like Word or Pages, this is basically the same as line spacing, okay? Now we use some slightly archaic terms in InDesign, not because it's old-fashioned, but because of the industry that it's come from. This has come from professional typesetting, where the roots of that go back decades and centuries actually, where type was set in lead metal, and the space between the lines was created using lead, extra lead, okay, in 1 point thick strips, hence the term. Okay, we can also change things like indents and spacing. We can add tabs, we can do a whole bunch of stuff. So we'll investigate some of these things as we go on. But for now, this is how my intro para is going to remain. Then I've got this title here. I'm going to lose this, I don't want it. But I also don't want this carriage return. Now you'll notice that I've got these funny little characters showing, and that's because I've got hidden characters on display, so you can hide those and you can reveal them. Now it's quite a good idea while you're working to have them on show, so you can see sometimes what's causing a space. These little back to front P's are paragraph endings, okay? So when we hit return on our keyboard, it creates one of these. So to have two, you'd have had to have hit the key, the return key twice. So I'm just going to remove that. And you can see now that this paragraph is going to end up quite close to this one, but this is going to be my body paragraph. So I'm just going to style this up. So I'm going to select the whole paragraph first of all, and I'm just going to choose something that contrasts with this. So I'm going to go for what we call a sans serif typeface. That's one without these like little flicks. This here is a serif, okay? And these are called unbracketed serifs. Can you see how very flat they are? That's a feature of these Didoni typefaces. And you can see on this typeface that this is a bracketed serif. Can you see how it's got like a little curve underneath it? That's a bracketed serif. So I'm going to choose something that doesn't have serifs, and we call those sans serif typefaces. So I'm going to go for something like Helvetica. So I've already activated the fonts that I want in Adobe Fonts. Helvetica New. Oh, I think I might be filtering. Yeah, I am. Helvetica New. I'm going to go for Light. Helvetica New Light Pro 45. There we go. And this is going to form the basis of my my body paragraph style. So again, I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to change its name to Body Para. And then I can also change things like its size. I'm going to take the size down to about 9 point, I think. I don't want it too big, and I don't want it too small either. So I also want a little bit of space after this paragraph. Just 1 millimeter of space will do, because I don't want to have to add extra carriage returns. Now, to apply that style now to this paragraph, I just need to have my insertion point somewhere on the para, like that. Oops, a daisy, that's a screen refresh issue. There we go. So you can see I can apply that style wherever I like now. Now this is going to be a heading. I'm just going to go to this here. And I can select lots of text, so I could go all the way down to here. Body para, that's another heading. That's another heading. This is going to be body, but it'll be slightly different. Now you can see this looks more like a very long letter because we've got all our text flowing in this very, very wide text frame. Now I'm going to split this text frame into columns. Now what a lot of people do when they first start using InDesign is that they will draw out separate frames for each column. You don't need to do that. You just select your frame, and then if you have a look up here, you will see this little box here. Currently it's got a number 1 in it, and if I just hover over that, you can see it says number of columns, and I'm going to add an extra column. So my text is now split into 2 columns. Okay, and I'm going to adjust this. I don't like how this looks particularly, so I don't need to select it. All I need to do is change the intro para. So I'm just going to make sure I've got nothing selected and double click on intro para, and I'm just going to make some changes. So I don't like this Didoni URW, and I'm going to change it to something else. So it's still going to be Didoni-esque. I don't want it to be that thin. I think I'm going to go for maybe a headline italic, possibly. A bit smaller perhaps, a bit smaller again. Okay. That's better. I quite like this display light italic, and you can see here that this style ends and the next one begins straight away, and I don't like that. I think this is an intro para, and it should have a little bit of breathing space, and we can add that on our paragraph style by going to indents and spacing. And I'm just going to add in maybe 5mm. Sounds like a lot, but it'll take it. So I'm adding 5mm of space after this style before the next style begins. And there's some other things about this that I don't particularly like. I'm just going to click OK and I'll show you what I mean. So we've got this kind of thing. This is hyphenation, and it splits words. So you can see customers becomes customers, price as, and I hate it. Now, sometimes it's unavoidable, but if you can avoid it, then try to, okay? So I'm going to switch hyphenation off on this particular style. So I'm going to go back to my intro para. And if I have a little look down here, you can see it says hyphenation, and I can turn hyphenate off, and that looks much better. Okay, I'm also going to add a little bit of space before this, this style kicks in. So I'm going to go back to indents and spacing, and I'm just going to have maybe 2mm of space just to give it a bit of air. And then I can click OK. Now, there is something else that I want to change about this, but we'll come to it later, so you can see how useful paragraph styles can be. So you can see I've got key responsibilities of a fashion buyer, and then these bits here, these are actually bullet points. Now I want my bullet points to be pretty much the same as my body para. So I'm going to make them body para for now. Like so. But I don't want them to stay that way. I'm going to, instead, I'm going to create a new style. Now at the moment I've got body para selected, and if I click here to create a new style and double click on it, you can see it is now based on body para. I could base it on something else, but this is the one that I want. And I'm going to call it body para with bullets. And I'm going to come down here where it says bullets and numbering, and I'm going to add ordinary bullets. You can add numbers as well, so you can make a numbered version. I'm not going to change anything else. I'm just going to click OK. And now if I click that and choose body para with bullets, you can see I have these bullet points. Now I don't like them because you can see they're not very refined at all. So I'm going to go back into body para with bullets and just do a little bit of fine tuning. Now I don't need to have them selected because the style is already applied. I just need to double click on here, go to bullets and numbering, and then I can play around with how this looks. Okay, so I'm going to change the tab position like so, and I can even have my first line indented a little bit like that. And you can see it's applied it all the way through. Now I'm going to make a little heading style. Okay, this is a kind of subhead. So I'm just going to select this heading, subheading, and I'm going to make a new style, and I'm going to call it subhead para, and I'm going to use the same typeface that I've used here. SNS. I don't want it to be that thin though. Okay, I think that's okay, but I want a little bit of space after. Maybe just one mil. And then I can apply that, my subhead para. And you can see it's literally just a question of clicking on the styles to just apply this. Super quick once you get going. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my big heading that I haven't made big yet and my intro paragraph, and I'm going to do something with those that will make them look a little bit more professional. Now at the moment we've got our text flowing into these two columns, including this heading. Now if I were to make this heading bigger, so let's just do that. I'm using my keyboard shortcuts to do this, and that's the Command and Shift key, or Control Shift, and the greater and less than keys will make the text bigger and smaller. Okay, so I might just want that to be quite large. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Now you can see some things have happened here. The text has now got very big for this width of column, and I've also introduced some really hideous hyphenation. So I'm going to make my my headline style from this. So I'm going to call it title para, and I'm going to change some stuff. So I think I might use the same typeface that I've used for my intro para. Okay, so I'm using headline bold for the font style. Now I can also change the case. I could go to all caps if I wanted to. Okay, but you can see that the hyphenation is hideous no matter what. So I'm going to take the hyphenation off, and I'm just going to change my all caps back to normal. I also think that I've now got too much leading. Now, when you see leading in brackets like this, this is called automatic leading. And this number here, when you're using automatic leading, will always be 20% bigger than whatever the size of the font is. Okay, so automatic leading is 20% of whatever the font size is. But I just want to bring it down in size a little bit just to close it up. Now you've got to be very careful with this, because if you take it down too low, you will find things like your descenders, things like this, letter G or the Y, they're called descenders, will start clashing with ascenders and capital letters. So this is an ascender on this lowercase d, and you can see we've got a capital T here, so it stands up higher. All right, so just be mindful of that. If you do come down more in size, so you'll notice at the point where I've got the numbers the same should be the point that they touch. There we are. Okay, that's called set solid. Again, it's from the old days, using lead type. Now you can get away with this much easier if you're using all caps. and you can go in much tighter, so you can have what we call negative leading, where the leading is actually smaller than the size of the type because there are no descenders. Okay, but I think that looks a little bit heavy, so I'm going to pop back to normal and just take out my leading a little bit more. There we are. So I'm going to leave it at that for the time being, and then I'm going to add some space after, about 3 millimeters of space, I think. And then I'm going to click OK and see how that looks. I'd really like this to be on the same line. I think it might be a bit big. I'll come back to it. Okay, it doesn't matter. Nothing has to be right straight away, so I don't need to worry too much. I'm now going to pick up the remains of this text. Now all you have to do to get hold of this is you just click your mouse in this little square here, and then you can draw out another frame, and there's the remainder of the text. I'm going to split this into 2 columns again, and I'm just going to carry on styling this up. I could make my life easy and just take the whole thing and make it body paragraph, and then just pick out the bits that are supposed to have the subheads in. Like so. Okay, now going back to these stars, I don't like the fact that this text, it looks very crushed up in this single column, and I want my heading to be big, and I can't really make it any bigger than that in this column. So what can we do? Well, we could extend it so it was the full width of both columns. So let's see how that would look. Now you're probably thinking, how are you going to do that? Well, it's quite easy. We go to our title paragraph and double click on it, and in here we have something called span columns. Now by default text flows into a single column, but you can force it to span columns. Now you can see here it says paragraph layout single column, and I'm just going to ask it to span columns. Now you can span all the columns or just maybe 2 columns. If you've got lots and lots of columns, you can choose the number that it can span by putting a number in here. I'm asking it to span all the columns. Now all of a sudden this doesn't look as huge as it did before, so I think I might make it bigger. And I might even force the word from over onto the next line and see what that does for me. Now to do this, I don't want to put a carriage return in because I would actually be breaking a paragraph or making a new paragraph. Instead, I'm going to do something called a soft return. And to make a soft return, we hold our shift key and then return. Okay, and you can see we get this little symbol here instead of the back to front P. So this is called a soft return, and it hasn't broken the paragraph. So this will all still behave like a paragraph should. Okay, and I'm going to go back to this style. I'm just going to make it a bit smaller. So I've got the word customer on a single line. That I can live with. Okay, maybe a tad smaller. There we are. Good. So I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to click OK. I also think my intro para would look better if it was spanned over the 2 columns. So I'm going to go to my intro para. I need to make sure I haven't got anything else selected. And I'm going to choose span columns. And I think that looks so much better. Okay, I'm not very keen on this. This does not look very professional, so I'm going to have to think about what I'm going to do with this. But I also want to put some pictures in my article here. So what I might do is I might lead this with an image. So I'm just going to select this frame, and when I come to the top here, if I click, I'm just going to hold it for a second, because then when I move, you can actually see all the type moving. You can see how it's all linked together. And I could push this all the way down. If I only wanted one big picture, I would do that. So I can see I've got no overset text, and now I've got all this room for an image. Okay, so I'm going to go to File. Now if I know I want the image to fill this space, I'm going to put a placeholder frame in. Like so. And I'm going to go to File and choose Place. And I'm going to, I think I left these images in my Downloads folder. So I'm going to use this one. And it's coming a little bit big, so I'm going to go to Object and Fitting and Fill Frame Proportionally. Like so. So all my text fits on the page. I've got an image that fits really nicely, and that wasn't too difficult at all. Okay, now what if you had a second image that you wanted to put on the page, or you just know that you want more images, but you can't compromise on the amount of text? Well, what can you do about that? Well, you can change your typeface for starters. I've used Helvetica Neue for the body, and I've got my body para with bullets. I've also got, I think I might do something with this paragraph in a moment, but we'll come to that shortly. So what I could do now is I can change everywhere where I've got my body para and anything based on body para. If I double click on this here, and I'm going to change the typeface, and I'm going to use something called Acumen Pro Condensed. Now condensed typeface, then narrower, so they don't take up so much room. And I'm going to use a light version like this, and you can see I've recovered this much space. Okay, so that's quite a lot, and you'll notice that the bullets have also changed because they were based on my body para. Okay, now the picture that I want to bring in is kind of long and wide. It's a catwalk shot, and I want it to go at the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this frame, and then I'm going to pick up this point down here, and I'm just going to roll this up like so. That's not a good place to stop it, so I could do something like that. It hasn't overflowed. It's now at the top of the page. Now there is a way, but I'll talk about it in another video, where you can keep certain styles together, okay, or lines together. So we'll do that in another video. I'm just going to bring in my last image, and then this little video will be over. So I'm going to go to File and choose Place. And it's this image, and you'll notice I haven't got it in a frame this time, so I'm going to guess it's going to be a bit big, so I've just gone to here, but that's okay. I'm going to bleed this off because I want it to be as big as possible, so I'm just going to take it all the way down to the corner there, and I'm going to make the frame wider. Now you'll notice the frame and the image are separate. They're two different things. And I need to bring the frame down to here. And then I want the image to fill this frame. So if I go to Object and Fitting and Fill Frame Proportionately, oops, moving the frame there. So if I double click, now I've got the bounding box for the image. Can you see this blue line as opposed to this, which is the frame? This is the image. So I can pick it up and move it. I don't mind chopping her forehead off, but I don't like her eyes being off the page. I quite like that. So there it is. And if I just preview this, so I'm just going to go to View and change my screen mode to Preview, so it gets rid of all the things that aren't really part of the page at all. And there we have it. Now the only thing that I'm a little disconcerted by is how close this text is to my image. So I can't compromise on the text, but I can just move the image down a tiny, oops, a bit too much. There we are. So I can just zoom out, and there we have it. So there's my finished spread, and I'll see you in the next video.